On the 15th of March, Burna Boy became a Grammy Award winner with his album called Twice as Top. Now, 2 weeks after the Grammy, he was honored in his hometown, Port Harcourt, with a homecoming concert. Now, during the concert, the governor of his state promised Burna Boy a piece of land in a highbrow area of the city and promised to cover the building costs for Burna Boy. Now, this is where things get interesting. Burna Boy accepted the offer and social media killed him for it. If it was Whiskey that accepted an offer from a governor, would he have been killed by social media? Maybe not. If it was Davido, maybe not. If it was Olamide that accepted an offer from a politician, would he have been killed? Definitely not. But why was it different with Burna Boy? The answer is branding. So let's talk about Burna Boy and the burden of branding. Where do I begin? Let's take it back to 2019, the infamous Coachella moment when the organizers put out the lineup for the year and Burna Boy was one of the performers. But his name was almost impossible to find on the lineup, because they were written in small font. And of course, Burna Boy reacted. Coachella, I appreciate you, but I don't appreciate the way my name is written so small in your bill. I am an African giant and will not be reduced to whatever that tiny writing means. Fix things quick, please. In 2019, I interpreted Burna Boy's position as self-aware and bold. I still think it was a very bold thing he did because in 2019, he was on the cusp of cracking the US market. And to lash out at Coachella, the organizers of one of the biggest festivals in the US, was a very bold thing. Now, we went ahead to also say this. I represent a whole generation of solid African creatives going global, not the soft, low self-esteem Africans with a slave mentality. I will grant an interview soon to make myself understood. Nothing I say comes from any place of pride or any sense of entitlement. It comes from my vision of the future of Africa, not just African music. Realistically, were the organizers of Coachella being disrespectful? Of course not. It's basic marketing tactics. People would typically buy tickets to an event based on the familiarity of the names that they find on the handbill, right? And in 2019, Burna Boy was not as popular as a lot of the people whose names were written with bigger fonts. If it was Coachella Africa, Burna Boy's outrage would have been more justified. But it was Coachella in the US, right? And also, Coachella features up to 100 artists every year. So to fit in 100 names into a flyer, it would be very hard to write everybody's name, with the same font size. But that moment kind of defined and set the tone for the new journey and brand that Burna Boy began to embody. He went ahead to release an album called African Giant and went on a series of press runs that saw him position himself like a modern day voice of advocacy or activism, if you will. Look at this headline, for example. Now, the number one rule of branding is consistency. Consistency with your action and consistency with your message. Branding is like a campaign. And your branding is your promise to your audience, and you have to commit to consistently deliver on the promise, right? If your value proposition is, for example, to speak truth to power or rise against the establishment, you might understand why people might not find it comfortable when you're seen celebrating or aligning with the government, especially in a situation that can be interpreted as an act for personal gain, because it goes against the ethos and promise of your brand.
Takuna politicians, we don't make una. You the people that you people have learned to love and embrace.
Nigeria,
hello. They love them, they hate them. Now them they thief your money. Now them they use the public.
Now you know what makes Burna Boy's case very delicate. He does not play it safe at all, and he takes the position of self-righteousness. For example, on the African Giant album, there's a line when he said, "My people, they fear too much. Fight for your rights, you go to fear." It was a line that suggests that Nigerians are cowards who do not stand up against oppression. Now, this line was interpolated from a Fela song, but Fela had the right to say that because he lived much of his life fighting against corruption and oppression by the government. But Burna Boy, on the other hand, has no public track record of advocating or fighting for human rights or anything, that gives him the right to make that kind of a statement. Now, check this out. Unlike the average Nigerian, if Burna Boy gets arrested for speaking up against the government, because he's a global citizen, the world is going to rally for his release and pressure the Nigerian government for his freedom. Yet, with this level of privilege or empowerment or platform, Burna Boy has not done more than the average Nigerian when it comes to any form of radical social change. Finally, in October 2020, Nigerian youths kicked off a nationwide protest against police brutality. Some would say this presented a perfect opportunity for Burna Boy to rise to the occasion, but it was nowhere to be found. Now, in his defense, with good reason, he said his mom was sick and he needed to be by her. But the thing is, a lot of Nigerians have also had good reasons not to speak up against the government because it is a tyrannical situation here. The rule of law and the concept of human rights is a foreign concept to the Nigerian government. A lot of people have been abducted for simply speaking up against the government. As a matter of fact, some people who were killed at the NSAS peaceful protests at Lekki Tollgate have still not, received justice for the inhumane acts that were done to them. There are people who will argue that Burna Boy is one of the biggest beneficiaries of Nigeria's dysfunctional system and the African plight. Burna Boy's success today has only little to do with his talent. He has been one of the most talented African artists for nearly a decade, but he was under-recognized until he caught the African giant moment and ran with it. Now this is the power of a good story and branding. Western media are scouting and looking for the next revolutionary. They want to document the next Fela or the next Mandela. And with the African giant moment, Burna Boy positioned himself as a potential revolutionary. And this is what his success today is hinged on. Even Burna Boy admits that Nigerians didn't appreciate him what he was appreciated outside Nigeria, right? But this type of success always comes with a lot of burden. And that is the burden of consistency. Consistency with your message, consistency with your proposition, and consistency with your position. And this is why Burna Boy was blasted when he accepted the offer of a piece of land and funding from a politician. Artists like Wizkid or Davido are not going to get blasted in that manner because their promise of their brand doesn't hold that much weight on the ground of moral and ethics.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So I started making YouTube videos today. And it was off the back of our conversation the other day. Yeah, the one about Burna Boy.
Oh, are we at it?
Yeah, so basically, I realized that my train of thought or my opinion on the subject matter is probably unprecedented, right? And obviously, you didn't agree with me, like many other people. Like many other Botlako people won't, right? Because they all love Burna Boy back here.
Okay, for me, it's not just love, it's also a friend.
Exactly. Exactly. So he's going to write for his guy.
I think Burna Boy is like the biggest musical African export right now. So whatever benefit that comes with being that personality is right. If you are able to win Best World Album on the Grammy scale, what if you didn't win? We won't be sitting, we won't be talking about him all year long, but he's gone to achieve that for himself. So I feel like I think he's right now more important than the president of this country, if you ask me, because he's been able to do so much in the industry right now. Burna Boy has done something that deserves, in fact, they should name a whole state to Burna. So I don't, nobody would, only a hater would have a problem with that.
Okay. At the end of the day, we'll see whether or not I'm a hater. I hope I'm not. For so long, Burna Boy had been underappreciated even in his hometown. So to receive that level of acknowledgement from the governor of his state was validation for the years of hard work. But the twist is accepting that offer was contradictory to the story that shot him up this high. Right? The bottom line is Burna Boy is going to bear this burden for a very long time, right? It might shed some of that weight by rebranding or morphing into a different type of artist, but the inconsistencies in the past 2 years will continue to trail him. Do I think that Burna Boy is Pan-African at heart? Absolutely. But to be antagonistic towards other people or to place yourself at the center of the struggle while you're doing the barest minimum translates to shooting yourself in the foot. I think that there is something inside of Burna Boy that's trying to crawl to the surface. It might even be his purpose, but the thing is that thing has not found full expression yet. So what's my advice to Burna Boy? I think that he should pace himself while he slowly does more education and rise to the occasion. Everyone is on a journey, and the brands that carry their audience along on their journey are the brands that connect the most. I'd like to see Burna Boy share photos of the books that he's reading, the documentaries that he's seeing, and publicly document his journey towards being this radical social change maker. That way, people are going to see him as a human being that he really is, with a tendency to fall short every now and again. But the intention of his brand will not be questioned. I think this is a teachable moment for everybody, even not just artists, also businesses, because your proposition or the promise of your brand is something that you have to be consistent with. And in many ways, it will bite you in the foot if you are not consistent. I think that's about it for this video. This has been a really stressful recording. I've not done this in a minute, but I had to do this, because Burna Boy is someone that I have a particular type of love for. I hope that next week or whenever you see me again, I find something that interests me enough to want to go to the stress of recording a video like this. Until then, it's adios.